We must have done something right because you came back. That's great. Who's here for the first time today? Well, that's great. We're delighted to welcome all of you as well. So thank you so much for being here for our National Defense Briefing Series. My name is Scott Murray, and I'm most honored to be back to serve as your host and Master of Ceremonies again. And for those of you who have attended previous programs, we, as I said, welcome you all back. And for those of you who might be new to our program, well, I really think you have a real treat in store for yourselves, because it really was very, very successful above and beyond last year. And I still, even to this day, have not stopped hearing folks say to me, "Are you going to do that national defense thing again, Scott? That was so cool. I was there last year. I was so impressed with that." So was I, believe me. Season 1 indeed was a great success, and we're absolutely thrilled to be back with Season 2. And so we hope that you'll find it most entertaining and informative, as Season 1 fortunately turned out to be as well. You're going to hear more about today's program and Season 2 in just a couple of minutes, but first of all, to start our program, we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and the Texas Pledge as well. That's going to be led by Bob Epstein. And then we're going to have our invocation to be delivered by Alan Clark. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask that you please stand right now and join me in the pledges, and then remain standing for our invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Bob, very, very much. Now, Alan Clark is making his way up here, and he'll do our invocation from over there. It's all yours, Alan.
That's right. There it is.
Here you go. Just a sec. Let me give you this one.
On this occasion of our gathering of patriots who love our America and are generous to support the myriad of worthy organizations represented tonight, we ask our Lord's blessings on our homeland, our community, our military, and their families. We thank you for the sacrifices of blood, sweat, and tears that have built and preserved our freedoms. Bless our provision, those who serve us, and those who prepared for our assembly. In the name of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Amen.
Amen. Good. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Well, once again, as I said, we are most happy to see such a great crowd, and certainly want to welcome each and every one of you. We have several retired general officers and many veterans in our audience here tonight, so certainly thanks to each and every one of you for your incredible service. If you are a first responder or a vet, we're going to ask right now that you please stand and allow us to give you one well-deserved big round of applause. If you're a vet, anybody here? Oh, please stand and be recognized. Yes. Thank you again so much for your incredible service. We also have with us some elected officials. I'd like to have them stand as well if you're an elected official. I know that General Al Zapanta from Irving is oh, there he is over there. I saw him earlier. Gentlemen, I don't have your name, sir? Okay, and you, sir? Okay, good. Thank you. Are there any other elected officials that were too shy to stand? All right. Okay. All right. Well, we're delighted to have you all here. All right. Well, I was really excited to hear that we were going to have another 50-50 raffle, because we did one of those last year, and somebody walked off with a lot of money last year. I think they we raised I think it was $150,000 just from the people that were here, and they went home with $75,000. Is this working? I just wanted to see if the microphone's working all right. Okay, as long as you're all still paying attention. But we did not have any raffle tickets till about 10 minutes ago. And they had not been delivered, and they were supposed to have been delivered earlier today. But we did get our raffle tickets. So we didn't get a chance to sell them prior to our sit-down and dinner here. But we do have. Chuck, is somebody going to go around and sell during the meal? Someone up there. Very good. Great. What's your name, sir? Lewis is the man. So be generous when Lewis shows up at your table. They're $5 each, or 5 for $20. And as I said at the end of the program, it's a 50-50 split. So if everybody's generous, you could go home with a lot of cash in your pocket. If you don't buy your tickets or wish to buy a more representative, something else from the Association of the Army, we'll have a big roll of them, and we're going to be circulating all kinds of good stuff during the course of the meal. Also, we have a couple of other auction items that we're going to be giving you a chance to be a part of a little later on, and I'll share that all with you during the course of the evening. Now, as most of you know, ladies and gentlemen, certainly by now, this series of programs is a joint effort by the Dallas chapters of the Military Order of the World Wars, the Navy League, the Jewish War Veterans, the Air and Space Forces Association, and the Audie Murphy chapter of the Association of the U.S. Army, to present a series of programs on issues that we all, as Americans, are certainly most interested in. And while these organizations have different programs and certainly different objectives, at the macro level, we all support the same things, and that's making America stronger and certainly supporting our servicemen and women, veterans, youth, and all of our first responders. This series actually has two objectives. The first is to conduct interactive discussions about key national defense issues led by substantive, tough word sometimes, substantive subject matter experts. The comments we've gotten from previous events really indicates the discussions and the speakers were certainly right on target day in and day out, and the questions were received were just outstanding from our wonderful audiences of the past. So they were thoughtful, they were insightful, and so we congratulate all of you for being here today, and certainly hope that you have some wonderful questions as well. Well, our other purpose is to conduct a long-range capital campaign to support the charitable and veterans work of our partner organizations. And you can see their logos on the slide behind me. You see them up here on the stage? There they are. And we certainly thank all of those generous people, because in general they have all teamed together and become part of our special team. At our last event, you heard from our presenting sponsor, the Credit Union of Texas, and you heard Ms. Lynn Addy talk about the great programs that they sponsor. So we certainly recognize the Credit Union of Texas. If anybody is present, anybody here? Don't be bashful. Put your hand in the, okay? All right. But someone will, I know we're going to hear a little about that shortly. But also, trying to find this. Here it is. Did y'all see one of these on your table? There should be like 8 of these at each table. It's a little flashlight. It's a gift from the Credit Union of Texas. Really cool. The batteries and everything are in there. It's a nice little flashlight. So make sure that you all take one of those when you leave here tonight. Thank you so much. Well, today we are most pleased to have Rover Petroleum join the Credit Union of Texas as a Nimitz sponsor. Unfortunately, the CEO of Rover Petroleum could not be with us tonight, but this gentleman to my right, who I think you all well know, Bob Epstein, he's going to say a few words on behalf of Rover. So, Bob, here. You don't need the mic. That's true. I know. I've heard you before.
Rover Petroleum, please stand up. Thank you. Rover Petroleum was founded by a very good friend of mine, Captain Vinny Mahavin. Thank you very much. He served, West Point graduate, served the U.S. Army, saw combat, retired, came back and joined the reserves. So briefly, Rover Petroleum, which is a very substantial sponsor of this event, is an upstream oil and gas company headquartered in Dallas. They continue to grow legacy production in Texas, Mississippi, and New Mexico. They're drilling horizontally in West Texas. The management team remains flexible to acquire new assets. Rover Petroleum continues, this is most important, because of Vinny and the great employees. One of their major objectives is to support patriot education, to support active reserve and military, support law enforcement and veterans through both active activity and charitable
pursuit. So we want to thank you again, Rover Petroleum. Thanks again.
Thank you, Bob, very, very much. And Rover Petroleum, we thank you as well. Thanks so much for being here. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to our discussion moderator this evening, Chuck. If you'd like to make your way, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our good friend, Chuck Daniels.
Please continue to enjoy your salads. I want to briefly mention some okay, this thing, there we go. I don't want to eat this thing, so want to briefly mention some significant events that have occurred with the National Defense Briefing Series. First, we incorporated the National Defense Briefing Series as a Texas nonprofit corporation, so your contributions may be tax deductible. Always nice. Second, we now have our own website, and you can see examples of some of the pages here, and you can go there and you can find out about our programs, see the pictures and the videos from past presentations, and most important, register for future events online. And as you can see, it's NDBS Inc. NDBS Incorporated. Should be pretty easy to remember that. And we've placed it at the bottom of several of the slides that you'll see this evening. Finally, as you can see, we have switched to a dinner meeting in lieu of the previous appetizers. We felt it was better value for the money and easier to administer. We hope you like it, and we ask that if you would please give us feedback regarding the meal and the service. And thank you to Heritage Ranch for making the conversion very easy for us. Scott, I think it's back to you. Okay. Mr. Scott Murray, thank you. Oh, and I see that the Credit Union Texas representative has just walked in the room. Would you please welcome Lynn Oddie? Thank you, Lynn.
All right, Chuck, thanks so much. And I see some of you have begun your salad. That's exactly what we need you to do. So go ahead. They're going to be giving us a cue in the back there to wrap it up so they can bring out your meals as well. As we move forward, ladies and gentlemen, today our topic is changing methods of war in the modern age. And there couldn't be a more apropos topic for the world we live in today. I think you'd all probably agree with me on that. And we are certainly honored to have with us a speaker with a deep expertise on the topic. Colonel John Antal is, well, I tell you what, he's a special man, and so we're going to hear from him shortly. But in the meantime, I'm going to turn the microphone. It says I'm going to turn the microphone back over to you. So, so do you have? You're going to introduce our program and our speaker, and but first, I'm going to say a few words about our agenda. So stand by. Just a few minutes. We're going to have a great dinner prepared by the outstanding Heritage Ranch staff. So please feel free to start on the salad course, as I just mentioned a short time ago. You should have a tent card with your meal selection of meat, chicken, or fish. You'll notice that we have a no-host bar in the room. So if you'd like to make your own beverage other than tea or water, go for it. You can serve yourself on that. When the main course is complete, we'll begin the evening's program while you enjoy your dessert. And there are two choices for dessert, carrot cake and red velvet cake, served at alternating seats. And if you happen to be seated at one and you don't like what you've got in front of you, just let us know and we'll make sure that you get the other dessert as well. During the rest of the evening, though, I'm also been asked to make you aware of the fact that the bar will remain open. We're going to make an announcement 10 minutes before the program starts so we can plan a little break for you. If you need to take a restroom break, we'll do that shortly. In the meantime, because discussions like these generate lots of questions in consideration of our speaker's time and yours, we're going to have a hard stop of 7 o'clock tonight. At 7 o'clock, whenever the questions run out. And once the program is concluded, you're welcome to stay and use this as an opportunity to network and certainly talk with our guest speaker and the representatives of our sponsoring organizations. And you'll also notice that they have tables around the room, so please stop by and pick up their material, and please consider the sponsorship opportunities that will be explained, and Bob mentioned a couple of them earlier. Finally, the 50-50 raffle. We're going to be around selling those tickets shortly. And also, we have a little live auction coming up a little later on as well. So it says here now dinner is served, and you're going to go ahead and do that? Or right now? Okay. Go for it.
Before we start the program, I would like you all to stand if you all think the World War II generation produced great military leaders and business captains of industry who led America to victory in the last war. If you do believe that, please stand up with me. Thank you. This evening, we're giving you all, Alan Clark, especially you, the opportunity to recruit the next generation of military and business leaders to provide the national security and homeland security we need to protect the United States in the future. Let me talk briefly about what your sponsorship monies, if you're thinking about it, go towards. Number one, Navy Sea Cadets. They're boys and girls aged 10 through 12, 10th grade, 10 years old to 12th grade, who train under the supervision of active duty Reserve and Navy personnel, and they get trained in active military training such as close order drill, military base. They get trained in medical training, robotics, scuba, shipboard life, firefighting, Navy and Marine Corps history, leadership, marksmanship. Civil Wear Patrol cadets, which I'm a member of, I'm a senior leader. I take Civil Wear Patrol cadets on ground team missions, have done so for the past 20 years. They're invited to special activity camps through the summer. These camps include Power Flight Academy, Special Force Operations, Glider Academy, Search and Rescue, and Air Force Pararescue and Survival Courses. Nobody sit down yet. I'm not giving you the chance to sit down yet. Lastly, the Military Order of World Wars has a youth leadership summer conference. Over the summer, and there's several people here that are involved, including my friend Mark and others. They teach leadership principles and the advantages of a free market society through guest workshops and team presentations. During this week, these high school students debate and are involved in talking about issues of national importance through business leadership. And when I did this program, I was an instructor over at Fort Worth. I asked the 80 students there, how many wanted to join the military? What do you think the guess was of those 80 students, how many wanted to join the military? 90%. So tonight, we're giving you all the opportunity to support these youth programs. You can join me, I'm a sponsor. My friend Vinny's a sponsor. You can join these and become a sponsor of the National Defense Briefing Series. The sponsor levels start we changed it from $500 to $10,000. $1,000, which you might all want to consider, gets you a number of tables during the course of the year. You also get, how many of you all are active shotgun shooters or want to be shotgun shooters? If you want to be, well, you have opportunities to get a shotgun clinic for a party of 4 from somebody who has won 4 first places in the past year. So that's great training. If you are not a shotgun shooter, the $750 category, the new sponsor level, gets you an archery clinic for 2 at Elmthorpe. So that's another opportunity. And lastly, the reason I'm wearing this hat is because we also support wounded airmen, wounded soldiers, and the families of those. My son is an EOD officer. He was stationed in Kuwait for 8 months. He was forward deployed. The reason I'm wearing this hat is because he came back September 1st. On September 11th, the gentleman who replaced him, the team leader, in the same job my son was doing as EOD, disposal, got blown up. And it's going to be several years of recuperation. So the point is, part of the money we raise, if you want to help us raise the sponsors, is to support not only cadets and youth, but support the next generation, also support wounded airmen. So you have, all of you have a flyer in front of you. So you all will consider checking off the box on one of those flyers or mailing it back in the envelope. I'll be in the back of the room. You can put the flyer in my hat. Those of you who want to think about that, great. Those of you who want to think about it and prefer that rate. We do have armed security at each door. You're not allowed to get out unless you make a contribution to charity. We want to thank you. Think about supporting us. Have a good evening. Thanks again.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, dinner will be served momentarily.
And be part of their events. I don't know how much you know about Credit Union of Texas, but we are trying always to support our first responders, veterans, and that's why I want to mention, I don't know if there's any veterans here. I am planning next month on Veterans Day, I know not the same day, the day before, I think the 10th and the 9th, we're going to make a recognition for our veterans in 3 of our locations, Plano, Las Colinas, and Richardson. So there is several times we sent already invite to, I know the director of North Texas Veteran Center, I think, and other people, they sent invite already with links that you can register. We're going to recognize in each location 2 veterans and give them awards. The mayor of each city will be there to recognize them and thank them for their service as well. So please, if there's any veterans here, just join us those days. You can, again, you can see if you need any information, just I can give you my email address and my contact information, so we can I can tell you what to do. One more thing regarding the Bob, he was talking about sponsorship here and the youth program that he's working on. We would love always to support our youth with money, and I can offer something else. I am working on financial literacy with the all youth and adults as well. So if you would like to do some financial education for them, I would love to offer that as well. And I would love to do it as lunch and learn. So I can bring our food truck that day to offer lunch to everyone and do financial education for them. Thank you again. And by the way, don't forget there's a little tiny gift on the table. That's from Credit Union. Please feel free to take it with you. Thank you.
Well, welcome again this evening. As I said before, my name is Chuck Daniels. I'm the past commander of the Military Order of World Wars. Is that better? Can you hear me in back now? Because I'm practically eating this thing. So, okay. It's going to be my honor in a few minutes to introduce our guest speaker and to moderate the discussion when the Q&A period comes up. But before I get to today's program, I want to give you some information about tapping into the second season. I'm trying to change slides here. So there we go. All right. So coming up on December 11th, our presentation will be titled Space, a Warfighting Domain. Our speaker is retired General Kevin Chilton, and he had an incredible career as a pilot, as a test pilot, an astronaut, and commander of the U.S. Strategic Command. He's a leading advocate for space and is one of the smartest and most articulate guys that we know of. So the registration is active and online at the NBS Inc. website for this presentation on December 11th. I encourage you to go sign up. General Chilton said that man has not found a domain that he didn't want to fight in. And if you think about that, it's certainly true. And it's not only apropos for the space presentation that you'll see in December, but it's also apropos for our presentation today. The next program comes up pretty quickly on January 29th with a panel discussion on air and naval power in the 21st century. And this time we have a distinguished panel. There'll be 2 speakers. We've invited Admiral Jim Fogo, the Dean of the Center for Maritime Strategy, which is an affiliate of the Navy League, which is one of the sponsors of NDBS. And formerly, he was the commander of the United States Naval Forces for all of Africa and Europe. Our other panelists will be Ms. Heather Penny. She's a senior resident fellow at the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies, which is an affiliate of the Air and Space Force Association. She's not only one of the leading air power authorities, but she's well known for a mission that she flew on 9/11 as an F-16 pilot as part of the District of Columbia National Guard. I won't divulge more of that story. You can go online and read about it, or you can wait till Heather tells you about it on December 11th. On April 2nd, we will probably have one of our most distinguished speakers, the 31st Chief of Naval Operations. That's, for those of you who don't know it, that's the highest position in the Navy. And so his topic will be announced later, so please check the website for updates. And finally, we will wrap up Season 2 with the second annual presentation of our Sam Johnson Defender of Freedom Award. And I'm honored tonight to have Sam's daughter at my table. Beverly, would you please stand? Would you welcome her? So she didn't know I was going to do that, so anyway. The Q&A. You know, every military organization has its rules of engagements, or ROE, and I'll quickly cover what the ROE for this evening is going to be. For this presentation, our speaker will take questions after the end of his presentation, so please hold your questions until then. If you do ask a question from the floor, I would ask that you hold up your hand, and we will have somebody bring a microphone to you. And we ask that you wait for the microphone because this presentation is being recorded and we want to be sure that we capture your question. All right. You can submit your questions one of three ways. You can hold up your hand, as I said, or you can email questions to ndbs.questions@gmail.com, and our distinguished Lieutenant General Campbell will be collecting those questions, and he'll be forwarding them up to me. I'll leave this up here for a second so you can copy down that email address. And then there's also, they may be buried underneath your dessert or your butter dish, but there are 355 cards on every table. And if you would like, you can write your question down, hold it up so we can see it, and we will come gather it from you and bring the question to the speaker. If you ask a question from the floor, I would request that you make it a question and not a speech. So please. We will have a hard stop at 7 p.m. And I expect that that will probably be at least 20 or 30 minutes of Q&A time after John is finished. So, and that brings us to the second rule of engagement. You guys are an inventive audience. I've always been impressed by the questions that you ask. There may be questions that you ask that our speaker is unable or not willing to answer. Okay? He's shaking his head no. But we've had that happen before, and that's okay if that occurs. The last rule, we have a non-attribution policy here, which means that we ask that you not attribute things directly to the speaker. That allows our speakers to be candid and open and discuss things with us that we probably will not see on the evening news. So we are recording this. And after the speaker has had the opportunity to review our recording, we will then place it out with his approval on the website. So let me talk briefly, because you came to hear him, not me, about why we selected this topic. Events in Ukraine and the enormous challenges in the Pacific have demonstrated that the world changed during the 20 years in which we were engaged with Iraq and Afghanistan. After Desert Storm and the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the decades of the 90s seemed to be a period where the beginning of America's reign as the world's sole superpower with no rival in sight. The attacks of September 11th, 2001, however, focused the U.S. for 20 years on a different kind of warfare. And when we pulled our last forces from Afghanistan in 2021, we realized that our traditional and aspiring adversaries had spent 20 years studying the things that had made America military great and the best in the world, and they had developed strategies to counteract them. So, American military is the best, but they have learned how to counteract or at least deter our military operations. Unfortunately, and I'm going to read a quote here, the U.S. military's record of predicting the future is notoriously poor. Robert Gates, the former U.S. Secretary of Defense, quipped, "When it comes to predicting the nature and location of our next military engagements, since Vietnam, our record has been perfect. That is, we've never once gotten it right." Okay? From the Mayaguez to Grenada, Panama, Somalia, the Balkans, Haiti, Kuwait, Iraq, and more, we had no idea a year before any of those missions that we would be engaged. Okay? And yet, for better or worse, the U.S. military spends a lot of time and effort forecasting where their businesses and their services are going to be needed in the next decade or two. And so far, we've never got it right. So, our speaker is uniquely qualified to address this issue. John Antal, Colonel United States Army, retired, has 30 years experience as an armor cavalry officer, and has written and lectured extensively on the changing nature of warfare. Served in the U.S. Army Science Board and has conducted an extensive independent effort to update U.S. military leaders on the lessons of recent military conflicts and the changing method of warfare. And you're going to see quite a bit of that this evening. He's the author of 16 books, hundreds of articles on leadership, history, and war. His most recent book, which I'm currently reading, is 7 Seconds to Die. And you'll see what that title means here shortly. A military analysis of the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War and the future of warfighting. Written about the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War fought between Armenia and Azerbaijan between September 24th and November 10th of 2020. The first war in history won primarily by drone warfare. Okay. If you wish to buy this book, John will be selling some of his books at the back here, and I encourage you to do that. Again, you can send questions to us at the ndbs.questions@gmail.com, and again, we'll have a hard cutoff at 7 p.m. Please welcome Colonel John Antal.
Hua. Okay, I'm going to be talking and walking. So hopefully I will keep you entertained and engaged. But what's most important today is the message that we're going to talk about involves all of you. An evil man once said that you may not be interested in war, but war is interested in you. And therefore, understanding what's happening in the world and how this warfare is changing is crucial to understanding what's happening to you and to your community and our nation. So, the war is changing. We must adapt to the changing methods of warfare. First of all, no affiliation. I don't work for anybody. I am not working for the U.S. government. I'm not working for any of the defense contractors. I do this because I care about my country, my military, our servicemen, and what I want us to win the next fight. Now, this is my 133rd presentation. for free, pro bono, that I do this because I talk to small groups, special forces teams in Fort Bragg and over in Europe. I do Zoom conversations and MS Teams conversations which are 90 minutes long, or sometimes 2 hours. I've talked with the Chief of Staff of the Army for an hour and a half, one-on-one, the Senate Armed Services Committee. All of this, I do this because I care about my country and I care about our Army and I care about our military. And I want us to win, and we're not ready. We have a dangerous capabilities gap in so many areas, and we need to pay attention. We need to wake up. So, hold on, if you would mind. Back up, please. So my purpose is to raise your awareness of the changing methods of warfare and inspire our military and their military leaders to act in time. Now, the first time I gave this presentation to all the assembled Army officers, general officers, at the Senior Leader Review, which was in December of last year, apparently many of the things I talked about they hadn't heard before. Now, these guys are smart guys and they're all busy. They're doing a lot of things, but we have to pay attention to what's going on. And we have to be reading, and we have to be thinking, and we have to be wargaming. Next slide, please. Hit it. Next slide. Now, what you just saw was combat footage from the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War, a war you never heard of. It happened in September 2020, and it went from September 27th, 2020, until November 10th, 2020. And it was the first war in history that was primarily won by robotic systems. And very few people paid attention to it. Very few people in our military paid attention to it, and very few people have studied it. It is a war we need to study. Azerbaijan fought Armenia. They were peer competitors, two countries with relatively the same size armies, same number of cannon, same number of tanks, all relatively the same, but the Azerbaijanis bought the latest kit from Israel and Turkey. And what you saw in that video were Armenian soldiers being slaughtered by Azerbaijani unmanned aerial vehicles called loitering munitions, and weapons fired from unmanned combat aerial vehicles, UCAVs, that fire missiles. And you see the video that you saw there, all of it is recorded. Live streaming video of every attack. So this does three things. First, it tells you precisely what the battle space looks like. So now you can see things like you could never see them before. Your weapons are your eyes. Two, you get a bomb damage assessment. You know you hit them. Three, you use this 24 hours later to win the information war. And these videos were playing on Facebook in Armenia and different social media sites. And Armenian mothers and fathers were looking to see if their sons had been killed. Now, the Azerbaijanis did it right. They fought a tremendously well-led, well-executed plan against an enemy that wasn't ready. The Armenians were fighting in the Russian way. They are allies of the Russians. They were trained in Soviet schools. They were trained in Russian academies. They are part of the CSTO, the Russian NATO. The Azerbaijanis are linked at the hip with Turkey, a NATO ally of ours, and they fought in a more Western way. And they also used their equipment in such a way that they leveraged their technology and were able to destroy the Armenian defenses. And when you think about this, it is really amazing. Again, relatively the same number of forces. But the big difference was the way that the Azerbaijanis used their technology in a new combined arms kind of blitzkrieg. The Armenians held the high ground. The Armenians won the first war. They won a war in 1994 that they had fought from 1988 to 1994. They won the first Nagorno-Karabakh war. And they had 26 years to defend the high ground, create positions, trench lines, fields of fire, minefields. And these are not hills, these are mountains. Nagorno-Karabakh is a mountainous region. To be able to take a defender in a mountainous region in the old way, you need 6, 7, 8, 10 to 1 odds. Now, if you use surprise and you're really good and you gain some advantages, maybe 3 to 1. But they're attacking basically at 1 to 1, and the technology made the difference. It overturned the terrain. It didn't matter that the Armenians were unprepared to defenses. It didn't matter that the Armenians had the high ground. Now, these are the top warfighting disruptors that I teach and talk to our leaders about, and every one of them is about an hour-long presentation. We won't go into all of them, but what I will do is talk about the first 3. Transparent battle space, the first strike advantage, and then top attack. Tempo of war we'll talk about later. Fully autonomous, kill web, visualizing the battle space, and decision dominance. These are the changing things in warfare that make war totally different from what you've read about World War II. Now, that doesn't mean that leadership doesn't matter. Leadership always matters. It doesn't mean training doesn't matter. Training does matter. But one of the things we're very good at in our Marine Corps and in our Army, particularly in the Army, is combined arms operations. We will never get into a combined arms fight like we used to because the enemy will kill us at distance in the future. So everything is changing. Next slide. So, I'll tell you what, back up one. So let's talk first about the transparent battle space. What does that mean? The transparent battle space means that you can be seen anywhere in the battle space. We no longer call it a battlefield. We call it battle space because it's 3-dimensional. It's actually 4-dimensional because time's involved. All of that, you can be seen by satellites, you can be seen by aircraft, you can be seen by unmanned aerial systems. You can be seen in so many different ways now that there is no sanctuary on the battlefield. No sanctuary at all in the entire battle space. You cannot hide. For instance, in Ukraine, over 70 Russian command posts have been destroyed, hit by long-range precision fires, found by sensors, and destroyed by long-range precision fires since the start of the war. That's battalion, brigade, corps, army headquarters destroyed. If we had lost that many headquarters in our Army and our Marine Corps in a 7 or 8 month period, with all the losses involved with dead colonels, dead generals, over 14 Russian generals killed so far. If we had lost all of that leadership, who would be leading our forces? This is a challenge the Russians have today. And they don't have an NCO corps, non-commissioned officer corps. They lead with their officers. And their officers are dying because they're being found. So the battle space is transparent. The enemy can see us, the Chinese can see us as we move out of Fort Hood. They can watch us as we get onto ships. They can easily follow a ship. A ship has a wake and a satellite sees it and knows exactly where everything is. Our submarines are even having trouble hiding. They have to go to extraordinary measures. But if you're on the surface of the sea or the surface of the ground, or if you're in the air, you can be seen. And the only thing that'll keep you alive is your ability to mask. In other words, your ability to deceive the enemy sensor network and disrupt the enemy targeting system. So sensors are proliferating the battle space. Soon, we will have sensors that will be microchip-like, that we will just shoot out of artillery shells, and they will fall like snowflakes everywhere. And all of those will talk to everyone. They'll all be networked, and you'll know where everything is most of the time. Now, that doesn't mean that in warfare, deception isn't important. It's vital. And that doesn't mean that you can't find ways to mask your forces. The Ukrainians, for instance, have done a very good job of masking their main attack, which was in the northern area this last couple of weeks ago in late August, early September, and hinting that they were going to go to the south. So they were very good at their OPSEC, their operational security, and very good at masking. And masking is the full spectrum, multi-domain effort. That means land, air, space, sea, cyber, multi-domain effort to deceive enemy sensors and disrupt enemy targeting. Our challenge is that the term masking does not exist in the military lexicon. In the U.S. military, the term masking doesn't mean anything to an officer, to a leader. We're trying to change that. There's an old quote. Some of you have heard this. Amateurs study tactics. Professionals study logistics. But in the 21st century, masters of the art of war, they understand tactics, they understand logistics, and they understand masking. Because if you can be seen, you will be killed. You have to find a way to deceive their sensors, and you have to find a way to disrupt their targeting. You saw the video. The Armenians could not deceive the Azerbaijani sensors. They were hunted day and night. Those loitering munitions will fly overhead for 6 to 12 hours looking for targets according to their targeting parameters. Most of this is fully autonomous, so you don't have to even have an operator doing anything. Once the operator gets a signal from the loitering munition that they in fact have seen the target that they've been told to destroy, a tank, an artillery gun, they then get a message, and that operator pushes a button, and then the loitering munition, which is flying way overhead, comes down at terminal velocity and strikes top down. And you saw target after target with their infantry. I have watched hundreds of these videos from Azerbaijan, studying them. Everything I do is open source intelligence, studying these videos. And every time you can see their air defense systems, their artillery systems, all destroyed by these robotic systems that Azerbaijan had. And their counter to this was they couldn't shoot them down. They were too slow and too small to see. So their air defense systems, which were maximized for aircraft, high-speed aircraft, and missiles, they couldn't see these small unmanned combat aerial vehicles and these loitering munitions. Warfare is changing dramatically. We're not keeping pace with it. How many of you know how many loitering munitions we have right now in U.S. Army and U.S. Marine units organic to those units? How many would say we have 100 units that have them in there? Raise your hand. How many would say we have 10? Okay, if you said 0, you'd be right. Azerbaijan has a greater capability and demonstrated it than we have in this particular area. Now, we have other things, and everyone says, but we have a great Air Force. And we do. And we have a great Navy. And we do. But if we fight a peer competitor, they may be pretty busy fighting the enemy's Navy and the enemy's Air Force. And right now, when you look at what's happening in Ukraine, you'll see that the Air Forces have not played a very important role. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them is the sophistication of air defense systems today. The air defense systems are pretty good. Russian air defense systems are pretty good. Ukrainian aircraft have been shot down again and again. Now, we would say those are old systems. They didn't apply to the right tactics. All of that could be true. The bottom line is we must learn from the wars that are happening right now. And the war that happened in 2020 against Armenia and Azerbaijan and the war going on in Ukraine give us some lessons that cause us to pause, and we should be thinking about them. Now, the next thing, first strike advantage. Think about the situation the United States will be in. We have forces in Romania right now. We have forces in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. We have forces in Poland. We're not going to attack Russia. We're not going to have a first strike against Russia. I can't imagine that. We're not going to have a first strike against China. I can't imagine that. And I've talked with many leaders. Now, you might say we should do something, this or that, but quite frankly, our policy is we're not going to be striking these guys first. However, our forces, our conventional land, sea, and air forces will be in places where the enemy will be able to strike them first. Now, you know that what happened in Ukraine on the 24th of February of this year, when Russia attacked, they had a first strike, a surprise first strike. Now, that surprise first strike wasn't as powerful as it could have been. You see, the Ukrainians are their cousins. They really didn't want to kill all of them back then. They just wanted to tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, buddy, remember what we did in Crimea? Do the same thing again. We want you just to put your hands up and let us take over because we're all brothers in this. We're all Russians, right? Well, they misjudged the Ukrainians tremendously. And because of what they did, the whole beginning of their war was flawed. Their first strike was not as powerful, and they hit 2,111 Ukrainian sites in the first 2 weeks of the war, destroying almost all of those sites. Command posts, artillery systems, air defense systems. And the priority for attack for the Azerbaijanis against Armenia was similar to what the Russians did against Ukraine. First, you take out air defense, then you take out electronic warfare, then you take out command and control, then you take out artillery, then you take out tanks, then you take out armored vehicles of all kinds, then you take out wheeled vehicles of all kinds, and then you hunt troops. In the video that I showed you, the Azerbaijanis, by the middle of October, were hunting troops. They had already destroyed the Armenian air defense in the first 2 days of the war. So the first strike by Azerbaijan was super powerful and very effective. The first strike by Russia was not. What do you think China learned from that? If China decides to go against Taiwan, then they will learn that the first strike must be absolutely overwhelming. It must be everything they have. Who makes most of the drones in the world? China. 80% of the industry in the world for drone production is in China. So they have the ability to ramp up if they so desire. Now, we don't want to talk about an enemy that's 10 feet tall. We thought the Russians were really good, and look how incompetent they've turned to be in many of the actions that they've demonstrated. The Chinese army hasn't fought anybody lately. The last time they did was 1979 against the Vietnamese. And that didn't turn out too well for them. They declared it a victory, but it was a bloody nose. So the Chinese haven't fought a war in a while, so we don't know how well they'll fight. And, as you know, we've pledged to defend Taiwan. Right? Maybe, kind of. Did we? I'm not really sure. But the neat thing about that is neither are they. And so, therefore, they have to count on us. They have to count as if we will defend Taiwan, because if they don't, they're stupid, right? Now, in World War II, the Japanese wanted the oil to make their army and their navy continue to run, and they needed it for the industry in Japan. So they needed the oil fields in Indonesia and other places that were held by British, Dutch, and French. Well, there was this one navy that was in their way, and some army forces, pesky army guys out there in the Philippines, and that was the U.S. So the Japanese, in order to do what they wanted to do, had to move us out of the way, because we were in their way. They couldn't take that oil. They couldn't have those resources with the American fleet out there possibly attacking. So they had to attack first, and therefore Pearl Harbor. So let me give you a counterfactual history example and show you how the changing methods of war are so dramatic. And I'll give this to you in a way that is a World War II metaphor. Imagine right now, in fact, take out those 3x5 cards that you have on your desk or your device or whatever, and think about your answer to this question. This is interactive. Imagine right now that you are Admiral Yamamoto, the Imperial Japanese naval commander, and you know, because you have done the studies, that only 38% of the Japanese dive bombers, who are the best, the Imperial Japanese Navy dive bombers, the best in the world, only 38% of their bombs actually hit the target. That's just the nature of the beast in those days. You know, we're talking about a guy coming down on an aircraft and thinking he got it right through a little sight and then releasing the bomb. I mean, it's amazing they hit anything. 38%. So you're Admiral Yamamoto. You're 2 weeks out. The fleet has already sailed. You're going to attack Pearl Harbor. So it's late November. What can you do to win the war? Write your answer down. Think of your answer right now, everyone. And I'm going to ask you. The ones I'm looking at know that they're nervous here. So, sir, what would you do if you were Admiral Yamamoto?
I don't know.
You have to know. You got to make a decision. Everybody has to think here. You've got to be active. You want to win the war. Now, you know if you attack with what you've got, 38% is going to win. Now, you're going to give the U.S. Navy, the U.S., a very bloody nose, but you probably won't defeat them. And in fact, Yamamoto said that. Those of you that know this in history, he said, we can run rampant for 6 months, and after that, who knows, they'll crush us. So what would you do, sir?
Well, whatever they do has to be a surprise.
Okay, it already is a surprise.
A surprise. They need to be overwhelming.
Okay, but they only got what they got.
They only got what they got.
How would you change it? You see, the question is, you're already engaged. You're already on the way, but you're trying to think of a way to change it. What could you do to change it? Anybody have an idea? Okay, good answer. In other words, change the targeting. But guess what? You still don't win, because if you do blow up the oil tanks and you don't take anything else out, they got the ships, and yes, the oil without the ships, but you know, you don't really win that way because there's too many ships still left and the Navy isn't really defeated, you just blew up some oil dumps. Sir?
Find the carrier.
Right. If you could find the carriers, that'd be great. As most of you know, when the Japanese attacked in Pearl Harbor, the aircraft carriers were out. Admiral Halsey had them out on maneuvers. It was great. You know, he didn't know it was going to happen, but he just happened to be lucky that day. Okay? But what could you do? You can't count on that. You know? You think the carriers are there. Your spies are telling you the carriers are there. And they had spies. Intelligence. Sir?
Second wave.
Okay, second wave is another good idea. Of course, they did a second wave. So, good thinking. All right, let me give you an answer. Change your thinking. Totally change your thinking. You want to win? Line up your pilots. I want 70 of you to become kamikaze. Your planes will be loaded with explosives. You will dive bomb into designated ships and facilities. You will do this for the glory of Japan. Will I get 70 volunteers? No kidding. Now, imagine what would have happened. In one wave, every ship is sunk. In one wave, the oil facilities are destroyed. In one wave, the dry docks are destroyed. All it took was a complete change of thinking. Hard-nosed, unbelievably cruel thinking. Robots have no heart. This is what we have. This is what we face. We have not changed our thinking. We could end up with a real problem. Now, right now in Ukraine, You do not see the Russians using their unmanned aerial systems very smartly. And in fact, we're not using them very smartly either. We're using them individually, piecemeal, like we did tanks in World War I. A little over here, a little over there. What do you mean they're not getting anywhere? And then you have guys like JFC Fuller, a British general, who said, why don't we put them all together and like really punch through? Yeah, and then you got the World War I ending, and you have World War II coming, and you got German generals like Heinz Guderian who say, we have to strike like a fist, not splatter with your fingers. And let's put them all together and let's figure out how to do this. And so the French, they fought, spread their tanks out all over. And there were many other reasons that they lost in 1940 if you follow the World War II example. But our problem now is that we have technology that has no heart, and this technology will be used by our enemies against us, and they're beginning to learn how to mass it. And once they start massing it in a combined arms way, they'll make the breakthroughs that they need, a new kind of combined arms. And the same thing happens at sea. Imagine different ways to attack ships. Imagine how many systems do you have that can shoot those things down? We have huge capability gaps right now in our military with counter UAS systems, counter unmanned aerial system platforms. So we don't have ways to shoot these things down automatically because they move at machine speeds and think at machine speeds, and our gunners don't. So we have to have systems that shoot them down at machine speeds. The Navy has a Phalanx system. The Army has a Patriot anti-aircraft missile system, a rocket battery system. We have a thing called a CRAM, which takes a whole bunch of ammunition, more ammunition than you can imagine, and we used to put them over the forward operating bases in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they would actually shoot down mortar shells. That's how good they were. But they take so much ammunition, you can only use them in fixed locations. So right now, we have a problem. Our military is expeditionary. We have to go from near to far. We have to get there, and as we get there, we come in piecemeal. Right now, we have small forces in Europe. We used to have 8 divisions in Europe. Now we don't even have a full division in Europe. We have brigades, we have a couple battalions here and there. We have a lot of advisors. All of that's important, and our allies need to step up. But one of our challenges is that if we're going to fight a peer competitor, we have a couple of choices. We can fight in the old way and take tremendous casualties, or we can change our thinking, rapidly change our tactics, techniques, and procedures, and start getting new equipment. Now, masking is crucial. We cannot hide from the enemy's sensors. There are 5 things that we need to hide from. 1, we need to hide in the optical spectrum. The optical spectrum means we have to have camouflage. We have to be good at camouflage. And all of my Marine and Army friends here know that we are the best at camouflage in the world, aren't we? We're horrible. Heck, we're the guys in World War II that had silver airplanes. Silver, think about it. Camouflage. So we have to have better leaders who get us to get into camouflage. And camouflage only takes 3 things: leadership, discipline, and kit. Our kit, our camouflage nets, all our camouflage stuff is old and doesn't work. It doesn't save you from the thermal spectrum, which I'm going to talk about in a second. It doesn't stop a lot of the electronic spectrum, and it doesn't help you at all. It doesn't help you much in the optical spectrum anymore. We need better stuff. We can also use better thinking, because a lot of our enemies, those of you that are Vietnam veterans, know that the VC and the North Vietnamese Army, they were able to camouflage very well, and we couldn't find them sometimes. So what we have to do is we have to get better at this. Now, the other thing we have to do is we have to take away the thermal spectrum. Right now, all of our equipment is much too hot. As it operates, just like your car operates, it heats up. Thermal sights see all this. So how do we blend into the temperature of the background so that we're not seen? We need to spend time and energy doing that, both with our soldiers and Marines in the field and even sailors, because it's harder to do with an aircraft when it's flying. But there are ways to blend in with your background better. We need to think through that. but we need new equipment to do it too. The third is that we have to be able to hide in the electronic spectrum. We are a military that swims in a sea of electrons. We turn on, just like you. How many times today did you have your phone turned off? What? What? Turn my phone off? You got to be kidding me. No kidding. We cannot go to electronic silence. Our units cannot turn off all their electronic equipment for an hour. That's discipline and leadership. I start talking about this and they all go, wow, how come we didn't think of that? Why aren't we doing that? You know, there's a lot to be learned from the Navy and submarine warfare on how they hide submarines. So think through it. We've got to figure out ways to diminish the amount of electrons that are emitting signals, because from an unmanned aerial system or a satellite, you can pick up everything that transmits an electronic signal. I have pictures of U.S. forces down to the individual equipment in the electronic spectrum that show you where we are. And an enemy commander with that information uses long-range precision fires to kill them. The next is acoustic. We have unmanned aerial systems that can fly, hear gunfire shot, zero in on that and know exactly where they are. We have to get quieter. And then the last, no kidding, quantum. Quantum sensors ought to start making the Air Force guys here shiver a little bit, because stealth doesn't work when you have quantum sensors looking for you. Now, quantum sensors, which use quantum mechanics to be able to tell the difference in gravitational attraction of objects and are able to see the differences and variations in those. I have pictures of stealth aircraft, and you're not supposed to have pictures of stealth aircraft, okay, in the quantum, with a quantum sensor that shows you where the aircraft is, flying across the U.S. So the point is that quantum sensors right now are in their infancy, but they won't be for long. And the Chinese are working hard on it. Now, the rest of these are all very important to our military. The tempo of war, everything is happening faster. Top attack, you saw from the video, everything is coming down now, straight down. You see, it's not how important the front of your tank is anymore, how thick the front of the armor of your tank is. Because an unmanned aerial system can drop straight down onto the weak top of the armor and destroy you. Top attack is the way it will happen, and you will see more drone attacks in the Ukrainian war and other places, and they're also going to become a weapon of choice for terrorists. Fully autonomous. More and more systems will be moving to full autonomy. Right now, we have systems in the U.S. Army that are fully autonomous. Some people say, no, we don't. In our military, we don't have fully autonomous systems, do we? Yes, we do. We have to, because they can't operate and save us. Most of them are defensive. Can't save us unless they operate at machine speeds. But what's going to happen when more and more systems become fully autonomous? Loitering munitions now are being designed so that you send them out over a strike zone and they operate on their own. And they hunt according to the parameters you gave them. So, fully autonomous. The next is a kill web. The kill web is when we get artificial intelligence synchronizing all the attacks of our precision fire systems. And that is something the Chinese are working hard on. So bottom line is, warfare is changing dramatically. Our thinking needs to change dramatically, just like the story I told you about with Pearl Harbor. To develop foresight, and we desperately need leaders with foresight. Foresight is the ability to solve problems in the short term and create solutions for the long run. We need leaders who can see this and who can move forward. We can't fight in the old ways. Horse cavalry is not going to make it against tanks, right? And the same thing we have today. We need to start looking at how we integrate some of these systems into our military, and we need to figure out how to fight an enemy that uses them. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I hope that you got something out of that. And no matter what happens, remember that there's a lot of good people working on this problem. We all have challenges, but we're thinking about it. I'm trying to get them to war game and fight and talk about it. And the more we can get a dialogue going, the better off we are. So spread the word and tell everyone that we got to think differently. Thank you. Go ahead.
So do we have any questions from the audience?
No, forget it. We'll just go back. Yeah, that's good right there. Leave that up. Questions?
Thank you, sir. That was awesome.
Thank you, sir.
So, coincidentally, today, I cut an article out of the Wall Street Journal from Saturday and sent it to Keith Self.
Ah.
Those of you know Keith, military gentleman, running for Congress, will be elected. Where is our Congress on this? The people who appropriate the money.
Okay, good question.
Big concern.
Good question. We have a wide spectrum in Congress, as you're all well aware, of people who know a little bit about the military and some who don't know, very much at all. We need leaders with foresight, and they can develop foresight in many ways to solve problems in the short term and create solutions for the long run. I did have a chance to brief the Senate Armed Services Committee. They were very attentive. Most of them had not had quite this in-depth briefing, which is a little bit interesting because I'm a retired guy in Dallas, Texas, doing open source intelligence. They really appreciated what I gave them. They told me I'm coming back and I'm going to be briefing them later on in November. And Monday I'm briefing the Australian Army. Right. Yeah, war has changed. We've got to get our thinking to change. So all of you know about changes. You've seen the changes in your life. You've seen how accelerated things happen. We started World War II off with biplanes, 2 wings, and we ended up with jets and an atomic bomb in 5 years. Think about that. So things are changing rapidly. What's happening is everything that's in your smartphone is being applied to warfare. So imagine your smartphone with wings and explosives, And then that's what, yeah, I don't mean to blow up your phone, but I'm just saying. So go ahead, next question. Thank you, sir.
So in the Middle East, Iran has been practicing swarming
Yes.
our aircraft, our military, our Navy, and you could almost do that now with AI boats.
Yes, swarming is a tactic. We've used swarming in our history before. You could say, for instance, Custer was swarmed, but the idea of using robotic systems working together in swarming teams is something we've been talking about, but we right now have no defense against them. Okay, no major defense. So for instance, when these loitering munitions are attacking you, I saw video after video of both Ukrainians and Christian Armenians trying to shoot them down in their respective wars. And you can't shoot them down with a rifle. You think you're a good shot, I know. You think with your shotgun, where are you, Bob? You think you can knock them out, but guess what? You can't. You just never hit the darn things. They're just too high in the air. And the problem is that if they start swarming at you and you have a drone gun that can knock one down, maybe, if you're lucky, and there's 10, now what are you going to do? So the challenge is to use mass systems, against the enemy's critical network systems, destroy them, leave the enemy vulnerable and incapable of responding, and then be able to use more and more of these. So we're going to see dramatic changes in warfare with the use of drones and swarms. But drones are not a silver bullet. There's ways to stop them, but right now we have a capabilities gap, so we have to catch up in many ways.
Question over here, John.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, a little loud. I heard you say you were talking to the Chief of Staff. I'm assuming it's Jimmy McConville.
Yes.
What's his response to what you just showed us?
Well, he was very appreciative of our discussion. We both learned in that discussion that there's a lot the U.S. Army is trying to do to move ahead and take care of these capabilities gaps. The challenge is time. Will we be able to fix things in time? For instance, if the Japanese had attacked with kamikazes, now they didn't have this idea in 1941, but they did it in 1944. And they almost knocked our fleet out in Okinawa because they had so many, effective kamikazes. Well, you can argue that, we took the greatest casualties in our Navy during that time, so it was pretty horrific. So the whole idea of kamikazes is interesting. Now imagine now that these kamikazes are all robotic and that you can have as many as you can produce. So they can do some amazing things if you have the thought process to use them right. So whether or not the enemy, our enemies, those people who are going to challenge us in battlefields across the world in the near future, are going to use these correctly or incorrectly, we will see. Right now in Ukraine, we haven't seen any ability to really use them, very effectively. But the U.S. Army has some capabilities gaps, and so does the Marine Corps, that we've got to fix, and the Navy as well. For instance, the Air Force is talking about, what the next manned fighter should be. And Top Gun is great, and manned fighters are wonderful, but robotic fighters might also be something we need to really look at and wonder if we have a future manned fighter. Of course, fighter pilots say we've got to do that. For instance, I'm a tank officer, cavalry. I commanded a cavalry regiment, Land Before Time. So imagine we have all these tanks, and I talk to tankers all the time, and I say, the next tank platoon is going to be one human tank and 5 or 6 robotic tanks. And they say, no way. And I say, way. Yeah, because if you think about it, it can be done. And it's a matter of commanding the robots, not controlling them. So you're not going to control them like individual movements. You're just going to give them orders by voice, or maybe by pushing on a screen and telling them where to go. But mostly it'll be like by voice. So a commander would merely say, go in column, go onto line, fire, shoot where I shoot. All these things are possible within our capabilities today, but we've got to change our thinking.
Question over here, John.
Yo.
John, I'm sure
Jim.
you left the very best for last. Currently, we... John?
Jim.
Is this better?
Much better.
Okay. Right now, we fight Russia's aggression with sanctions.
Yes.
And I'm sure you have a way that our sanctions stand a chance of deterring the enemy. What do you think of that, John?
What do I think of sanctions?
Because that's our game plan.
Well, Sun Tzu, Chinese philosopher of war, said that you should win without fighting whenever you can. There's a long history of nations and empires fighting enemies with diplomacy, money, duplicity, spies. All those things are important. Right now, Russia hasn't collapsed yet. Maybe they will. If we win the war by sanctions, it'll be the first one in history. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't sanction them.
We have a question over here, John.
Okay.
All right. My question is, you're talking to the military people, but you also mentioned the fact that we are not producing things here.
Right.
What are we talking to any of the manufacturers to try and bring manufacturing in so that we aren't dependent on somebody we may be fighting?
Right. Very good question. The industrial base and what we produce makes us a resilient power or not. So most nations have to buy their military gear and other things, even their technology, from somebody else. Most nations don't produce their own tanks or don't produce their own communications gear. They buy the iPhone, they get this kind of stuff. They buy American, they buy British, they buy, bigger countries. What we have is an industrial complex that right now moves pretty slowly. It moves slowly on purpose because in a democracy we didn't want to have money just thrown around willy-nilly, do we? Well, what I meant to say was we don't want to have money. Anyway, what we've done is we've made the military purchasing process design from the I need this to what's the design to let's build it to let's fund it to let's deploy it. That takes 10 to 15 years for almost every system. Now, we've been able to do some things faster, but normally faster means that it was a system already somebody had designed but just hadn't funded. So our challenge is that in an era of innovation, in an era of prototype warfare, where things have to happen much more rapidly, are we ready for this? And it's an excellent question because we really need reform. I call this symbol the syndrome McClellan's saddle. Now, General George B. McClellan was a Civil War general, but in 1859 he came up with the horse saddle that was used in the Army until 1943. And I have a video that was made in 1943 showing how the U.S. Army was going to win the war on horseback riding the McClellan saddle. Now, it takes a long time sometimes for people to change their minds. We are living in a time period where things are happening much more rapidly. The tempo of change is huge. So we need to be able to do things much more rapidly. Everyone seems to see it, but somehow we can't break through it. So it's a huge problem, and we've got to have reform. We've got to be able to move things through. And now we can do some things top secret with secret money that is amazing, and we can't even can't even imagine some of those systems. But if they're not in the hands of the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines when we fight, it doesn't matter. We've got to have it in their hands. They've got to be trained to use it ahead of time. And so that is a long lead time. Very difficult to do. Good question.
Colonel, you have a question from the general over here.
All right, sir.
Hey, John. Simple. Spectrum warfare. And that's what we're looking at. But beyond that, what you're laying in front of us, guys like us, we know how to fight a war that we fought.
Right.
Problem is, where's the leapfrog? And that's what I think you're really going towards.
Exactly right, sir. Thank you. In fact, one of the things that those of you that served in the military will understand, this is kind of like the Blitzkrieg in 1940. It's the ability to use new systems and integrate them in ways that haven't been done before. And if we don't do it, we'll end up standing still while the enemy hits us 20, 30, 40 times. Now, we've been all over the board in this presentation, from basically national policy to strategy to tactics, and it may be a little confusing, so I apologize for that. But when it gets down to actually being prepared to fight and win, what it requires is the thinking mentality to be able to see the world as it is, not as you want it to be. Our challenge is that the way we used to fight was effective for that time. But now it needs to change just as much as World War I was different than World War II. And World War II was different than the war against the insurgents for the last 20 years and the next war. So we have to have people that think. And our leaders need to read. I consistently tell them they need to read to lead. Read to lead. Which brings me to a quote from my very, very favorite, most favorite author. And I think all of you will agree that, Samuel Clemens was one of these guys, Mark Twain, one of these guys who was just amazing. If you haven't read any of his stuff, you should. But one thing you should take to heart, because the quote that he gave on this particular night when he was giving a presentation stuck with me perfectly, and I'll never forget it. He said, "You do not honor an author by reading his book. You honor him by buying his book." Now, I have three books that I want to talk to you about. Leadership Rising. This is a book you want to give your kids, your grandkids, and everybody else, and any leader you know, because this doesn't tell you how to lead. This questions you so you learn how to lead. You learn who you are in this book. If you think you know yourself, you ought to do this book, not read it, do it. Because in this book, you're going to find out who you really are. Now, this book, and I only have a few left back there, 7 Leadership Lessons of the American Revolution. This book talks about the American Revolution and how the leadership in 7 case studies of the American Revolution can help you in your business, in politics, and no matter whatever you do. And how this thing was really something extraordinary, exceptional. Why are we an exceptional nation? One reason: we decided to rule ourselves. No one had done that in a long time. They always handed it over to a king. Think about it. That's why we're exceptional. And 7 Seconds to Die. Now, where did I get that title? This is a story about what happened in 2020. This came out, published on the bookshelves 2 weeks before Russia invaded Ukraine. I wrote this because I said we've got to pay attention to this, and sure enough, when Russia invaded Ukraine, everything that was done here is playing out. Different scale, but nonetheless playing out. 7 seconds to die is a quote from an Armenian soldier. He said, when we heard the loitering munitions overhead, we had 7 seconds to run or die. Day or night, because they had thermal sights on these things. They couldn't do anything. If they got out of their trenches, they got killed. So they were frozen in their positions while the Azerbaijanis maneuvered all around them. This book tells you how it works and talks about the future of warfare. So, as I said, you do not honor an author by reading his book. You honor him by buying his book, and I'll be back there selling books, and I take cash, credit card, gold, watches. That's about it. Yeah, any of those things. Thank you very much. It has been very enjoyable being with you tonight. Thank you.
John? So I'm going to hold this rather than try to eat it. So thank you for your remarks, John. If you'll come up here on the stage, we have a parting gift for you, and I'm going to turn it over to Scott for that.
Thanks, Chuck. What we have right now, you're talking about books. We have a little something for you as well. It's entitled All Roads Led to Gettysburg, a new look at the Civil War's pivotal battles, written by Troy Harmon, with an insert listing with NDBS Board of Directors. We also have a, well, here's the book, first of all. Why don't you give that to you? You give him the book. I'll get over here. We also have... We also have a shirt that's been embroidered. Do we have that here? We don't have that here. Here, why don't you tell them?
We will be providing you your shirt. We have them ordered. So we figured you needed an extra small, right? Okay. And we will also be providing shirts to the Rover for their sponsorship as well.
Once again, thank you very much. Outstanding. One final time for the Colonel. Let's put our hands together. What do you say? Okay. Now, Chuck and I get up here. We're going to do this as quickly and efficiently as we can, but obviously as profitably as we can, because we have a quick little auction of sorts. We have, here, do you want to take it over here? You want to hold on? Okay. This is really something. This is very special. This is a print, and I've got some information about it. It's a signed and numbered print by renowned Nebraska wildlife artist Neil Anderson. And this is the mallard drake, okay, the duck drake. Neil Anderson grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, in the heart of the Central Plains. Drawn to the beauty of his outdoors and the unique personality of his native state, his hard work and dedication rewarded with the prestigious honor of winning the 1989-1990 Federal Duck Stamp Competition. He won numerous conservation stamp competitions, including 2 Nebraska First of States, as well as designing sponsor prints for Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, and North Dakota Ducks Unlimited. So, this duck, he has signed this. Now, I think he passed away recently, did he not, in the last year or two? Somebody told me that. I thought maybe not. But I think he has. But he has signed this. This is numbered. This of 500. This is number 22 of 500. Now, this retails at $100,000, but tonight, yeah, they're listening. They are listening. Okay, that's good. Does somebody want to give me an opening bid? You can go home with this. It's as I said, it's autographed, and it's absolutely gorgeous, the way it's printed. And somebody want something for their family room, their game room, their whatever room? 200. I've got an opening bid of 200 right here. Do I see 3? 300? Anybody? How many people have been to an auction before? Raise your hand. Okay. We do whatever we can to raise revenue, folks. 200 up front. Do I see 300 any place? Any place in the room? 250? I'll take 2.5. 250. This is a one bid wonder, I think, right here, huh? That's the same. That's the print. Oh, this one up here. No. Well, I don't know. Is it?
That's another print for the same audience.
That's another kind of duck. That's Donald, and I don't know who this is right here. Okay. Have no idea. This is mallard duck. Is that it? One bid? Well, I'll tell you what. I have 3 more of these. I'll tell you what. We have a bid of 200 here. Does somebody else want to give me a bid of 200? Because look what I've got backstage. Da-da-da-da-da. Am I holding this up the right way? I've got 4 of these. All right. Anybody? No? Well, I tell you what. Ladies and gentlemen, going, sold. $200. Okay. All right. Let's get to the golf. I think you're all in a hurry to get out of here. I can tell. Round of golf right here at Heritage. This is for 4 people. So you're foursome, and what works? Anybody would like to have a round of golf here? 4 people. You all get to play together. You know what a foursome is, right? Anybody? How many people have played golf before? Raise your hand. Boy, this is a tough crowd. I feel like Rodney Dangerfield up here, for Pete's sake. Nobody wants a round of golf? How much? 50? 100, thank you. 200? What's it cost to play golf here? 200 plus, I thought, yeah. I've got 100 here. Do I see 150? 150 in the room. Heck, I'll bid 150. 200. 200. Anybody in the room? $200. 200. I think they're ready to go home. Going once? Going twice? Do I see 200? Any place in the room? Sold for 150. We'll see you at the next event. When is it coming up? December 11th, January 29th. I guess that's it. Oh, I forgot that we've got the, yeah, I was having so much fun up here. You forgot about the, that's what they've been waiting for Pete's sake. How much do we have in there? How many did you sell? A lot? Didn't count it. Good luck. Do you have to be here to win? You got to be here to win.
Drum roll. Drum roll.
The winning number is 743. You all still in the running? Okay, I thought so. 743 711 711 711 743 711. Have you got it? Are you serious? You can't. Are you serious? Well, isn't that no? Wait, come here. He wants to toss it back to the crowd. What a nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
743 628. Anybody like to buy a broken? Unbelievable. Oh boy, having a good night tonight, huh? And when you leave here tonight, don't forget my name's Dale Hansen. Okay, yeah. All right. Boy, we're having a heck of a good time here, aren't we? I think is it December 11th is the next. December 11th, folks, right back in this very room. We hope you'll tell your friends and neighbors what a great time you had. Stay safe, and we'll see you on the 11th of December. Thanks, everybody.